Welcome to the Growth Through Adversity podcast, where men are forged, not coddled. Here we dive deep into the path of true transformation in pursuit of physical, mental, spiritual, and temporal growth. We talk training, nutrition, business, mindset, and spirituality. We embrace strength and we loathe ease. We reject weakness in every form and cultivate power, the will to power itself. This is the rebirth of modern man. Raw masculinity, tempered by reason, virtue, and right action, because nothing of value is earned without sacrifice. Let's begin our apotheosis together. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Growth Through Adversity podcast. This morning, per the request of one of my clients, we're going to be discussing rest and recovery, both intra-workout rest, so rest that occurs between our sets, between our exercises, things of that nature, and then longer duration rest, the bigger picture, the macro picture of rest, which is our rest days and our sleep and our overall recovery on the macro scale. So if you're a part of my program, you know that I give you a very generic recommendation on how long to rest per exercise. And I'm going to kind of break down why. So one of my clients, again, asked me to do this class because she didn't understand why we were resting between sets and what the exact mechanism is for it. And so we're going to go through the whole thing and break it down really good. So number one, whenever we're working out, we're expending energy, and energy in the body is very complex, like energy anywhere else. So energy is driven by a molecule called ATP, which means adenosine triphosphate. It's a certain type of molecule that's stored within the cells and muscles, and it has 3 phosphate molecules on it. When your body needs to create energy, it breaks off one of those phosphate molecules. That happens a billion times throughout a muscle that releases enough energy for that muscle to contract, right? Absolutely fascinating process, how it all works. Chancey, what's up? We are doing the rest and recovery. You've only missed about 10 seconds, so you're right on time. So that happens. So ATP is the molecule, adenosine triphosphate is the molecule that resides in the cells within your muscles. And the way that your muscles contract is by shaving off, breaking one of those phosphate molecules off of ATP, and then it leaves a molecule called ADP, adenosine diphosphate, di as in 2, right? And then, so now you have this molecule that is short one phosphate molecule, so we have to restore that phosphate molecule. Creatine phosphate carries, hence why we supplement creatine, carries phosphate molecules into the cells in the muscles and restores ADP back to ATP so you can recreate energy on a cellular level again and make your muscles contract over and over. Once you run out of ATP, you can no longer create force through ATP. Now, there are lower threshold energy pathways that occur through oxidization, through bringing in oxygen, that can sustain much lower levels of ATP much more steadily. But you can't do anything over like 60 or 70% max intensity. So nothing like sprinting, nothing like plyometrics, and nothing like lifting weights, nothing that requires explosive activity without ATP being the driving force of cellular energy behind it. And the most efficient way to do that is to use the ATP stored within your muscle cells, right? So your body has a couple different processes, and we won't go into it because it gets pretty nerdy talking about how exactly your body regenerates ATP, but there's 3 different pathways. There's the oxidization pathway, which is endurance, and that can create very small amounts of ATP and sustain relatively low intensity activity for a very, very long time. And then there is there's the more anabolic pathways that can create larger amounts of ATP, but they take longer to restore your ATP stores, and therefore you can then generate more ATP and generate more force. So we won't break down all the different energy pathways there, but there's an aerobic one, which it means coming from oxygen, and then there's 2 anaerobic pathways, which mean existing without oxygen. So that's the stored energy, glycogen, ATP within your muscle cells. So this takes time to restore these things. On average, ATP can be restored mostly in about 2 to 3 minutes. But if you exhaust your ATP stores completely, like with a really, really heavy, really intense lift, that can take upwards of 8 minutes to totally restore ATP. So it takes a little bit of time. So that's where those rest sets come in. Lifting weights is an anaerobic exercise, right? So it exists without oxygen. We're using what's a high threshold energy activity. So we're using the energy that's stored within our muscle cells to create the energy needed to contract our muscles. So in order to keep contracting our muscles, we have to restore that cellular energy through resting. So that is the main predominant reason why we rest. Again, it takes about 2 to 3 minutes for creatine phosphate to cycle more phosphate molecules into your cells and for your cells to rebuild ATP from ADP so that you can continue to contract your muscles and do high intensity activities. So if you cut rest short, what's going to happen, and you're going to notice this, and you can even experiment with this a little bit, is if you cut your rest short, you notice that your reps are going to go down, your power is going to go down, your strength is going to go down, which overall is going to manifest as a decrease in intensity and tension on the muscle. So a decrease in the capacity and capability for the muscle to grow and become stronger. So that's really why we rest, because you could do your sets back to back to back. And if you do like your first set, 5 reps, RPE of 8, really tough set, and then you rest like 10 seconds and you do another set, you're not going to get 5 reps. You'll probably be lucky to get 1 or 2 reps. But if you rested 2 to 4 minutes, you would be able to get another 5 reps. So that's 3 more reps that you're going to get out of resting. So that's 75% more tension that you're going to put on your muscle. That's 75% more stimulus that you're going to put on your muscle. And that's 75% more of an opportunity for that muscle to undergo the processes that it needs to grow. So this is absolutely essential for creating enough of a workload on the muscles to be effective and get you the results that you want. So that's the muscular and cellular component to resting. There's another very important component that involves the central nervous system. So big lifts, especially big compound lifts like deadlifts, squats, bench presses, overhead presses, anything where you're moving multiple joints at once. What's up, guys? Where you're moving multiple joints at once and you're doing these big, powerful compound movements. They put a fuckload of strain on your central nervous system. So it manifests itself as fatigue, not just in the muscles, but in the central nervous system. And this fatigue is cumulative. So as you go, if you're not resting and recovering, you're just frying your fucking central nervous system. And this is the main component. Like, I think it's way conflated: overtraining, overreaching syndrome. I work with a lot of different people, and I don't honestly can't say I've ever truly seen a true case of overtraining, but hypothetically, this is what happens because we rest, because we program intelligently, because we eat adequate nutrition. There's a lot of components that go into this that stave off overtraining and overreaching, but it is predominantly if you're not giving your central nervous system the ability to rest and recover itself, it's going to fry itself out and you're going to get burned out and you're going to go into first an overreach state, which is the precursor to overtraining, and then you're going to go into overtraining, which takes fucking months to recover from, and your performance will decrease, your muscle growth will decrease, you'll have all kinds of bad, your libido will go down, you won't be able to sleep, your joints will fucking hurt, you'll be much more likely to get injured. Nothing good comes from being in an overreached or an overtrained state. Now, again, I think people are over cautious about avoiding that because most people are undertraining rather than overtraining. But with high level athletes, and once you get your body broken in, and really with anybody, if you're not eating right, resting right, sleeping right, recovering, you're at much higher probability of ending up in an overtrained or an overreached state, which is not a good thing. So we need to let our central nervous system recharge. And it's also, because if we don't, it's also going to affect our performance. In intra-workout, we're going to see a decrease in velocity, so the ability to move things with force, so bar speed, and we're going to see a reduction in strength and power. None of these are optimal for maximizing muscle growth or strength gains. So goal specific rest guidelines. So if you go and you pull up like any sports science textbook, they will have very generic rest tables. And that's what I put into your program. For anybody that's in my one-on-one coaching, you know, there'll be a recommended rest, 1 to 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, whatever the fuck it might be. So those come right out of like the textbook of, so for power ranges, so think like 1 rep maxes, max intensity sprints, box jumps, anything where you're trying to exert maximal force for a very short burst. You can rest anywhere from 3 to upwards of 8 minutes or longer for that, right? So think about like a power lifter in a meet. When they're training, honestly, they'll do a 1 rep max and then they'll rest 10 minutes. So a lot of their workout is just sitting there waiting, recovering, waiting for their next set. It's fucking funny watching powerlifters because it's like it's very high intensity when they lift, but then it's like they're like gorillas. They just sit there for their fucking 80% of their workout because they need to, because they're exerting so much force against the bar. They're putting so much, they're frying their central nervous so much, and they're expending so much of the cellular energy that it takes that long to recover, right? So that's the power ranges, maximum output. Strength ranges, think of working in like the 3 to 6 rep range. You're going to want to rest somewhere between like 2 to 5 minutes to let your central nervous system recover and to let your ATP restore itself. Now, hypertrophy or muscle growth, this is where things get a little bit more complex. So we need to recover, right? Because we want to get maximal tension on our muscles to make them grow. That's what makes muscles grow. But at the same time, we want to maintain a little bit higher level of fatigue. So when we're working for strictly strength, we don't want any fatigue. We want to rest until all the fatigue's gone, so our next set we can exert maximal force. Hypertrophy, it's a little bit different. We want cumulative fatigue, but we want to recover enough that we can still get most of the programmed reps that we're supposed to get so that we can get a really high intense set. So what they'll typically recommend is somewhere between the 30 to 90 second range for muscle growth rest ranges. Again, that will change quite a bit. You got to ride the line there between fatigue and recovery. You want to still be suffering a little bit. You want to still be fatigued when you go into your next set, but you don't want to be so much that rather than 10 reps, you get 6 reps, if that makes sense. So, and then endurance conditioning type stuff, much shorter rest. So we're trying to work the cardiovascular system here. Cardiovascular system runs on an oxidative energy pathway. So it uses oxygen for fuel. So it recovers much quicker and it puts out lower outputs of energy, so it can recover quicker and generate that activity on a regular basis. So for these, you only need to rest somewhere between 20 and 60 seconds. And if you're resting longer than 60 seconds, you're bullshitting and you're taking away from your workout. So that's kind of like the generic formula that they recommend. And I do agree with the endurance conditioning, keeping rest sets. Like I like them around like 20 to 30 seconds. Usually I'll start people off a little longer, like 30, 45 seconds till they get broken in. And then we'll shorten it down to where you're like working 30 seconds, resting 30 seconds, working 30 seconds, resting 30 seconds, super high intensity when you're working, and then resting just enough to let your heart rate plummet, and that undulating heart rate, really good for VO2 max and just for overall cardiovascular conditioning. I use that with my athletes a lot. So now I have my 3-step primal method to recovery. So for all weightlifting, this is really what I recommend you use. Rather than just like, bringing your stopwatch and timing your rest sets, curtail it to your own, how you're feeling individually, because how long it takes you to recover is going to be different than how long it takes me to recover and how long it takes somebody else to recover, right? So I have a 3-step method. Number 1, breath. So your cardiovascular system has to be completely recovered before you're ready to do your next set. So for any fucking buddy who's done a heavy set of like back squats, so right now I'm doing a lot of hypertrophy rate work. So I'm doing a lot of higher rep ranges, 10 reps, 12 reps, at leaving maybe 1 rep in reserve. So working at like a 10 or a 9 RPE. That's a brutal fucking set. You do 10 or 12 reps of a back squat at basically like, a maximal fucking intensity. it takes you come out of that like fucking wheezing, and I mean, you sound like a 300, like a fat chick at the mall, and the McDonald's is on the second floor and the escalator's broken, but she's got to get up there. She's famished. She hasn't eaten in like an hour and a half. So she's just got to truck her way up the fucking escalator without any power to help. That's what you sound like when you come out of a set of fucking heavy squats. And it takes a fucking minute to recover from that. And you're not ready to do your next set until you're fully fucking recovered from that and your breathing has once again normalized. So that's the first thing I listen to. Until I'm done fucking hacking and wheezing after a set, I'm not even considering doing my next set. Number 2, muscle check. Spasming, shaking, convulsing, you know what I mean? All that shit. You come out of a really hard set and you're having those fucking involuntary you're not ready to do your next set until all that shit stops. That's your central nervous system. That's all those fucking hormones and endorphins going crazy. That's your muscles fucking spasming and contracting because they hate you, because you just put them through an unsufferable amount of fucking torture. You are not ready to do your next set until that recovers. So wait on that. And then finally, so, and again, this isn't time-based. I don't care. Sometimes this takes 1 minute. Sometimes this takes 10 minutes. Like I said, those really high volume, high intensity squat sets, big hard compound movements, deadlifts. Yeah, I'm recovering as long as I need to recover to be able to get a quality set on the next one and to get a really good workout. So, and then the final method that I use is the gut check. So this is in what I call instinctive readiness. You feel when your muscles are ready to go. You know when you're like legitimately need to rest, and like when you're sitting there fucking texting your girlfriend or fucking scrolling fucking Instagram or whatever the fuck, you know what I mean? Like when you're procrastinating because the next set's gonna suck and you know it and you're like, fuck, I don't want to do it. So once you get to that point, you're not breathing heavy anymore. Your muscles have stopped fucking spasming, you know, it doesn't look like you're fucking having an epileptic seizure anymore, and you feel like you're ready to go, then you're ready to go. Anything beyond that, you're procrastinating. So again, this might take 1 minute, this might take 10 minutes, depending on your fitness level, the exercise, and the intensity. But basing it off this is going to give you the best results. So this 3-step framework is it's a hack. It's a secret. And trust me, use this. It's going to serve you really fucking well. So now we need to talk about sleep, because literally every fucking application I go over with a new client, I don't think I've ever had a new client tell me they have optimal sleep. There's like 3 different categories you can pick from on my onboarding questionnaire, and like one is like optimal, which is 8 hours plus of sleep, and then there's like suboptimal, which is like 7 to 9, and then there's like poor, which is like 6 to 7, and then there's like horrible, which is less than 6. And 90% of people sign that like 6 to 7 range. And honestly, that's virtually what I get most nights too. So I fucking get it. It's hard to get 8 hours of sleep. But it's fucking super important. I have gotten to where most nights I get 7 now. I've changed my whole schedule, cut out a lot of like the really early morning training and shit I was doing, because I know how important it is. And I fucking feel better. Like my mind feels clearer. My mood feels better. I didn't really realize it when I was getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I was sleeping like 4 or 5 hours a night. Like it was just had that like macho fucking thing going, and I was like, yeah, I'm fucking fine. I'm good. I didn't realize how much that shit was fucking impacting me until I like until I started getting 7 hours of sleep. And I was like, yeah, damn, I was leaving a lot on the table. So, yeah, sleep is super important. I know it's hard because we're busy, demanding careers, training, and then time with family. Like a lot of the only quiet time I get with Katie is fucking, you know, in the evening, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. So I don't want to like go to bed early. I want to spend some time. So I fucking get it. But trying to figure out, making efforts on sleep is going to be super important. So why is sleep the king for recovery? Number 1, sleep. We become a fucking hormonal factory in sleep, and it absolutely stimulates muscle growth. So dream sleep stages 3 and 4. So there's 4 stages of sleep. Number 1, well, there's wakefulness. And then number 2 is, number 1 is light sleep. Number 2 is REM, rapid eye movement. So this is like when you're dreaming. So we spend a lot of time, like probably like 70% of the night, 60% of the night in light sleep. Not really a lot happens in light sleep on a like hormonal, metabolic, and recovery level. So it's probably there's a lot that happens with like processing in the frontal cortex. So for like discipline and like decision making and mood and rationality, a lot of that recovers in light sleep. So it is definitely important. REM is kind of like that processing conscious thoughts into memories. So it kind of is like our brain's like filtering system of like making sense of this fucking reality that's crazy that we live in. So super important. But then 3 and 4 are the 2 layers of deep sleep. So 3 is deep. 4 is like Jason Bourne syndrome deep. 4 is like if somebody wakes you up from like stage 4, it's like you are disassociated with your, like you don't know who the fuck you are for a couple seconds there. So if you ever been waking up like that, that is a dick move by whoever did it, because you were in deep sleep 4. Your body was a hormonal factor. You were creating testosterone, fucking growth hormone, good muscle, protein muscle synthesis, and they fucked you. But that's okay. It happens. We got to deal with that. So stage 4, super important, but 3 and 4 in general, deep sleep. This is when growth hormones secreted. So in kids, teenagers especially, growth hormone levels are really high. That's why they're so fucking tired all the time. That's why they sleep so fucking long. That's why they can go to bed at 8 o'clock at night and sleep till 2 o'clock the next afternoon. Growth hormone makes you sleepy, and then your body secretes more of it at night while you're sleeping. And so it's kind of like creates a feedback loop there. But it helps you recover. It helps your muscles grow. It fucking cooks fat off of your body. Super important. Testosterone is also secreted for males when they, well, females too, just at much lower levels while you sleep. And then our other hormones, our other sex hormones that have an important effect in anabolism and catabolism and muscle growth and all of these different things, all kind of regulate themselves at night while our body's sleeping. They all come from the different glands in the brain, the pituitary gland, stuff like that. Communicating with our sex organs and secreting these hormones. And this process happens when we're unconscious, and specifically when we're in deep sleep. So very, very important. Protein synthesis also spikes exponentially. So that's the process of your body building new muscle tissue. Is protein synthesis, taking in protein that you've, dietary protein and the amino acids, and breaking it down and reappropriating it into muscle tissue. So actually regrowing muscle happens while you sleep. And then cortisol drops. So cortisol is a catabolic stress hormone. Working out, exercising, releases cortisol. Anything that's fucking stressful. It's a fight or flight hormone. It has a lot of good benefits for like survival, you know, the adrenal glands, all that kind of stuff. We talked a little bit about this last week or the week before. But cortisol, out of control, what happens if we're not recovering after these workouts and letting our cortisol go back down and then normalize, is it just kind of keeps going up. Then we get fucking stressed at work and it goes up a little higher. And then we have an argument with our old lady and it goes up even fucking higher. And then our kids do something stupid and it goes up even. So it's like we never get a chance to let this cortisol normalize, and it fucking totally fucks us up. Long-term cortisol overstimulation has all kinds of downstream effects that are not good. So managing cortisol is managed while we sleep. It's managed in rest, recovery, kind of deprogramming, deloading, de-stressing yourself. Finding whatever it is that does that for you is super important. Outside of training, obviously, because training is one of the things that like keeps me from losing my fucking mind, but it also spikes cortisol. So outside of that, you know, I have time outside, I have hunting, I have archery, you know, other stuff like that that you really like, that you really enjoy, that just like gets you away and gets you to where you're like not fucking stressed. Super important. So I'm having a big cortisol problem with one of my athletes right now, and it's causing water retention, and they're not losing weight, and it's like it's a nightmare right now. I think we got it solved. Another way to deregulate cortisol, carbohydrates. So a diet rich in carbohydrates. So that's why I always tell people I don't like to diet people more than 3 months at a time, because then it's like your metabolism slows, your cortisol levels go up, and eating a carbohydrate rich diet for a couple of weeks, like really high carb diet for a couple of weeks, can totally baseline that out. So that's kind of what we're playing with them, is having a couple refeed cheat days every week with really high carbs to try to fucking normalize some of the stress hormones that they got going on with them. But it's a nightmare. So super important. And then also fat loss and muscle growth and muscle wasting, catabolism, atrophy are heavily associated with sleep. So there is a fucking awesome study that I read that was relatively recent. It was 2016. They had 2 groups of people. They ate the exact same diet. They were in a small deficit 200 or 300 calories for 8 weeks. It was a weight loss diet. The only difference they did the same training, they ate the same foods, the same macros, the same fucking everything. Really well put together, well structured study. The only difference in it was that one group slept 8 hours. The other group slept somewhere between 6 and 7. So not much of a difference. And we always feel like, man, if we got 6 hours, we won. Or if we got 7, we really won. So even at this hour difference between 8 and 7 hours, the group that got 8 hours of sleep, both groups lost the same amount of weight. It was like 6 pounds or something in 8 weeks. So both groups lost the same amount of weight. But the group that fucking slept 8 hours, 75% of that weight loss came from fat mass, right? Just like you want. You don't want to lose any of that hard-earned muscle. You want to lose fat. The other group, 75% of their weight loss came from lean muscle tissue. So for some fucking reason, not getting enough sleep, and it's hormonal, it's growth hormone, it's testosterone, it's all of these things that are designed to preserve and build muscle and burn fat are not regulated because you're not getting adequate amounts of sleep. But because of that, they lost the same amount of weight. They did all the same stuff. One group lost fucking fat. The group that didn't, the group that slept 8 hours lost fat. The group that didn't sleep 8 hours lost all that muscle. They lost all that weight and muscle. That fucking sucks. So that, you guys work really hard in the gym. At least everybody on here that's one of my clients. You guys work way too hard in the gym to be fucking not sleeping and costing yourself all that hard-earned muscle. So just don't do it. Cool. Yeah, we talked about how your brain resets, mostly prefrontal cortex. So that's like the mammalian part of your brain, conscious thought, rational thought, logical thought, decision-making, motivation. All of this is fucking compromised if you're not sleeping enough. So keep your prefrontal cortex healthy. Helps you make good decisions. That's why kids are so fucking stupid. Their prefrontal cortex isn't fucking fully developed, so they do all kinds of dumb, weird shit. None of us want to go back to doing that, I'm sure. I don't, definitely. So again, optimal sleep for the general population, 7 to 9 hours, man, is fucking ideal. I get it. It's hard, but really try to change your schedule, make that work. For athletes, 8 to 10 hours consistently. Athletes put a lot more stress on their body. You know, they're training 6-7 hours a day. Sometimes when I was professionally fighting, I was training 4 hours a day was a short day in 2 or 3 different training blocks. So you are putting unhuman amounts of stress on your body, unhuman amounts of stress, and then you're dieting, and then you're in a caloric deficit. The only thing you've got going for you is you need to make it up in sleep. So if you're a high-level athlete, 8 to 10 hours consistently. People that are serious, the best athletes out there, every one of them sleeps no less than 9 hours. It's a universal fucking truth. Less than 6 hours is horrible. So 6 to 7 is pretty fucking shitty. Less than 6, testosterone drops sometimes as much as 50%. Recovery tanks, fat loss stalls, muscle loss begins. So really bad things start happening under 6 hours. Now, I will add a caveat here. Sleep is kind of individual. There are some freaks out there, genetic freaks of nature. One of my business coaches sleeps 4 hours a night, and he's fucking operates at a very high level CEO. So there are some exceptions to this rule. Some people don't need a lot of sleep. As you get older, you need less sleep. But still, we're training, we're pushing the envelope here. So unless you're one of those freaks where it's like, okay, you go to sleep and get fucking 4 hours of sleep and you wake up like refreshed and feeling good, that's what you're looking for. If you're refreshed, if you're feeling good, if it doesn't take you fucking 2 gallons of caffeine to get through your workday, you're probably getting enough sleep. If you're having to drink 6 fucking, what are the C4 energy drinks, stop your heart energy drinks, I know when I don't get enough sleep because I have like 2 of those Ghost energy drinks and fucking 4 espressos and I'm still fucking tired and yawning. So if that's you, get more sleep. If you're fucking refreshed and feeling good, you're probably getting enough and you don't really need to think about this too much. So last little section here, why do we take full rest and recovery days? Number 1, to prevent burnout. Overtraining, plateaus, mood swings, injuries, low libido, all this comes from overtraining syndrome. So we want to give our body a chance to just kind of reset. Furthermore, tendons and joint repair. So tendons, soft tissues, ligaments, all of that kind of stuff, cartilage, it all heals. It all gets broken down with weight training, but it heals a lot less quickly than muscle tissue does. So we need to give our system time to recover and to rebuild those soft tissues so that we don't just get cumulative damage to them and end up getting overuse injury, tennis elbow, all that kind of bad stuff, bicep tendonitis, all kinds of weird shit happens if you don't let these tendons fully recover. That's going to happen in those full active rest days. And then like a mental and emotional reset. So like when you rest, you come out of your rest days feeling sharp, driven, ready to get back. So if you just worked out 7 days a week, it's like you don't ever have anything to look forward to. Our minds don't like feeling hopeless. Like there's no end to our fucking misery. And I enjoy training, but I also enjoy my rest days. I enjoy feeling completed at the end of the week. Like, okay, cool. I got all my workouts in. Now I've got 2 days where I fucking chill. You know what I mean? Get my steps in and fucking hang out and just kind of relax and reset. And then by Monday, I'm like, fuck, I want to get back to the gym. You know what I mean? Now I'm like excited. I want to go push my fucking next PR and you know what I mean? But if I didn't take that rest time, I would be a lot less excited Monday, so I wouldn't train as hard Monday. So you actually get higher quality training by letting yourself reset and giving yourself something to look forward to there. So we'll talk about a couple principles that play into this. So I've got a reel on my Instagram and Facebook about super compensation, so I won't go into this too deep, but super compensation is when you train. So if this is baseline threshold, you train, what happens is, first of all, you have a dip where everything gets broken down because training is catabolic, right? So you have a decrease in performance, but then your body recognizes that, and when you recover, it overcompensates and it shoots up. So if it started here, it overcompensates and it shoots up higher. And so every time it's slowly going higher in this process. If you're overtraining, it just goes down, doesn't come back up to baseline, and it has the opposite effect. So that's where recovery comes in, letting your body super compensate to the work that you're doing. And then progressive overload. So if you can't add more weight, you can't add more reps, and you can't add more volume if your body's fried, your joints hurt, your tendons fucking hurt, everything hurts, and you're fucking exhausted and fatigued. So in order to effectively progressive overload, which is the key to building muscle and the key to building mass, you absolutely have to rest and recover adequately. So other than that, that wraps up this little fucking diatribe on rest and recovery. If you guys have anything, so this replay will be posted on both Instagram and on Facebook if you want to reference back to this. It'll be on my podcast on YouTube too. But if you guys have any specific topics that you want me to go over next week, let me know. Shoot me a DM on Facebook or Instagram, whatever, and I'll put something together. If not, we're going to talk about the difference between cardio and weight training for fat loss. That was what I had scheduled for today, but Chancey asked for this, so we switched it up, and I had a lot of fun with this. Other than that, man, you guys have a great weekend.